In this video, we're going to discuss how to solve system of equations when there are no common efficients. So for now, I want you to press pause and copy down the sentence, which is right here. What if there's no common coefficients? So when there are no common coefficients, you multiply one or both equations by a number to create matching opposite coefficients. So now let's look at it. Let's look at example 1. What do I mean by that? The first equation is right here, x plus 3y equals 6. The second one is 2x minus 7y equals negative 1. I don't have anything in common here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take equation 1. I notice that if I multiply by 2 here, and then I would have the same as the equation, as the second equation. So when I multiply by 2, I want to multiply every single term by 2. So that's 6y, and that becomes 12. So that's what I just did there. It's first equation multiplied by 2. And then the second equation is exactly the same. All I did was I rewrote the first equation, right? So now I created a pair that's exactly the same right here, a pair of coefficients. So when it's the same, we said we change the sign on one of the equations, and now we can go back and add equation 1. So now we do equation 1 plus equation 2. I would have this canceled, and then I should have 13y here equals 13. If I divide 13 on both sides, I have y equals 1. Then I take the original first equation because it's a smaller number, it's easier. I just plug in the 1 where it says y. And so now I have x plus 3 equals 6. I subtract 3 on both sides. I should have x equals positive 3. So my final answer for this one, for this system of equation is 3, 1. Okay, x is first, y is next. So let's look at this one, second system. First equation, second equation. First equation's coefficients are much bigger. Let's look here. 3, and here I have 1. So maybe what I can do is I can use the second equation, and then I multiply that by 3, right? And if I do that, I'm going to keep the first equation here. That's the first equation. Second equation, if I multiply it by 3, I should have 6x. 1y times 3 becomes 3y. 5 times 3 becomes 15. That's second equation multiplied by 3. So now I have 3y in both equations. I'm going to change the signs in every single one. And that's allowed, right? That's allowed because we multiply or divide both sides of the equation sign with negative 1. So now we add equation 1 with equation 2. And so I would have 3x here. This gets canceled. And I have x equals negative 1 in the end. So now I'm going to take the second equation because the number is smaller. Because I like to work with smaller numbers to make life easier. I plug in the x, where plug in x equals negative 1. So I should have negative 2 plus y. Now if I add 2 on both sides, so I end up having y being 7. So my final answer for this example is negative 1 and 7. Okay, let's look at the next one. Equation 1, equation 2. Now, because there's negative y here, and here's 4y, and that's probably the easiest to manipulate. So what I will do is I will take the first equation, wrong color, first equation, multiply it by 4. So I would have 12x minus 4x equals 56. And then the second equation, I have the same thing just to bring it down. So this is my first and the second. And now all I need to do is I add the two equations together because the coefficients here are opposite already, right? Which is really what we want. It's the easiest case to handle. So if I add the two equations together, I have 17x equals 68. And if I divide 17 on both sides, I should have 4. So now I take, let's take the first one. And then I do 3 times 4, because that's what the x value is, right? And so I have 12 minus y equals 14. Now if I subtract 12, I should have positive 2 on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, I have negative y. So I need to negate the signs in everything. That's how I get 4 and negative 2 for that answer. Okay, so I demonstrated 3 problems. See if you can do number 4 and number 5 by yourself. And I'll put the answers up. Okay, if you've done these correctly, you should have negative 8, 5 for 4, and negative 4, 3. I'm sorry, negative 4, negative 3 for 5. Okay, let me do number 6 with you. It's very much, it's very much the same process. You have 1y here and you have 2y here. It's always easier to start with the variable that the coefficient is 1. So equation 1, equation 2. If I just multiply everything by 2 in the first equation, I would have this. And then the second equation, I just line it up here. Okay. What's interesting is that the first equation and the second equation are exactly the same. So if I were to change the signs as we were instructed to do, and then I add the 2 together, I will cancel this out, I will cancel this out. So on the left-hand side, I have 0. On the right-hand side, 4 minus 4 is also 0. So in this case, the answer is infinity, meaning doesn't really matter. Whatever you put in, whatever x value, whatever y value you put in there, these are the same lines. Every single point in the first equation is also on the second equation, the line that represents the second equation. Okay, now I want you to pause the video, finish number 7 and number 8, and I'll write the answers down for you. Okay, I'm going to move this whole sheet up. And let's look at some of the remainder ones. These are a little bit more complicated. However, it's the same method. So let's look at number 9. I have 5x plus 9y equals negative 10. So that's my first equation. 7x plus 10y equals negative 1. That's my second equation. Okay. And my file is a little crooked, which drives me crazy. This is where I'm OCD. So let's come back to this. I have nothing I can make very easily. If I multiply an even number, I cannot get to 7 and 10, because somehow one of these pairs has to match, right? So I have to find a common factor. Probably the easiest thing to do is look at it here. A lot of times this is easier. You know, if I just make, especially when the number is small, if I make the second equation, multiply that by 5. 7 times 5, I would have 35. And then the first equation, I multiply that by 7. So I cross it, crisscross it basically. And then I would have 35 too. So let's take a look. First equation multiplied by 7 every term. 5 times 7 is 35x. 7 times 9, 63, right? Y. And then negative 10 times 7 is negative 70. It just makes the numbers bigger, which is annoying, but it's not wrong. Second equation, I multiply by 5. I also get 35x. 10 times 5 is 50. And negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. So now I'm relabeling it. Equation 1, equation 2. Now I have the same coefficients, same terms, so I just change the sign on every single one of them. Now I can add them together. That's how I cancel this one. And then I add the y terms together. I should have 13y left. And on the right-hand side, I should have negative 65. So now if I divide 13 on both sides, y equals negative 5. And the rest is exactly the same. You just plug it back into one of the equations. Make sure you plug into the correct one. This one is y. So 5x minus 45 is 35. So I should have 35 here. X should equal 7. So I have 7, negative 5 here. Okay? So that's how we do this type. So practice 10 by yourself. I will write the answers here. Remember, if it's not too hard, you do have to, you just need to multiply, the crisscross multiply, basically. That's probably the easiest way to remember. But number 10, notice the format. Where is the equal sign? You have to make sure that the y term and the x term are on the same side. So you have to manipulate that a little bit. Okay? And the answer for number 10 is 3 and negative 3. And remember to pause the video. All right, I will demonstrate number 11. Number 11, I have first equation, 2x plus 4y equals 6. Second equation, I need to do some work. I'm going to add 6y on both sides because I don't want the y on that side. So I would end up with 3x plus 6y equals 12. And on top, I have 2x plus 4y equals 6. Okay, that's my equation here. Now, I did say that you can crisscross multiply, meaning you multiply the first equation by the 3 here, and then you multiply the second equation by the 2 here. So let's try that. If I do that, I would have, I'll write it here, 2 times 3 is 6x, 3 times 4 is 12y, 3 times 6 equals 18. And then every term at the bottom in the second equation, if I multiply the same, and multiply by 2. So my first equation, second equation. And now if I change the signs on every term, right? And then I add them together, first equation plus second equation. I cancel that. I cancel that. So on the left-hand side, I have 0. On the right-hand side, I have negative 6. And clearly, let me change this sign. Clearly, 0 does not equal negative 6. Therefore, the answer for this one is, the answer does not exist. You can write null, like what I did, which is a 0 with a line there, or you can just write undefined. Either way would work. Okay, number 11. Number 12 is exactly the same approach, back to the same approach. Do that on your own, and you should have the answer of 1, negative 4. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.